Welcome to the Brand Clarity Podcast, hosted by Visions to Images and Susie Liberatore. The Brand Clarity Podcast highlights several different topics, including entrepreneurship, franchises, and digital marketing trends. Visions to Images helps corporations and franchises with their branding, website, paid advertising, and digital marketing. Hello, everybody. Today I have on the podcast Jonathan Weathington of Shuckin Shack Oyster Bar.
Shuckin Shack.
Shucking Shack. Is it not what it is? All right. He's making fun of me because I have a New York accent. I swear it's shucking. And if it sounds like something else, just ignore it. But yeah, anyways, I'm glad we can have some fun and laugh already because that's what it's all about. And I mean, you got to make some stuff fun in life. So welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. So tell me kind of, you're merging, you have 18 locations. Tell me how you got into this and kind of got started first and foremost, and then we'll dive into some other questions.
Sure. So I'm not a founder of the brand. I knew the founders when it began. They opened their first location in Carolina Beach, North Carolina in 2007. And it was open kind of as a bar that served great food. And then it evolved from there. And the food sales started to outpace the bar sales rather quickly because of the product of the quality of product they were serving. I knew the guys that founded it. I was working at a business a couple of doors down, actually owned by one of the founders, and paying for grad school and just trying to make my way in life and figure things out. And they opened a second location in 2012, and I helped them actually build that location. I have a little bit of construction background, so helped them build that location in 2012, and then began looking for a third location in 2013, and then decided to franchise. And I had been fortunate enough to work for some really large companies, even dating back to high school. And I'd actually worked for a franchisee of another brand in high school. And so I kind of had a basic knowledge of the franchisor-franchisee relationship. And they called me in February in 2014. And I came down for the weekend and hung out. And they said, "We don't know what you're going to do. We don't know what we can pay you. We don't even know if this is going to work, but we feel like we've got a good concept. We want to grow. And we feel like you'd be a great fit on the team." And so I joined them actually officially yesterday, 10 years ago.
Oh, I was going to say yesterday. Yeah, no, it's about
yesterday was my 10-year anniversary with the company officially.
Congratulations. So what is your role in the company currently then?
I'm the CEO.
Okay. Well, that's fantastic. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's lots of fun.
I know we were going to talk about some like branding and marketing and stuff. So I think it's really important to have these conversations. And one topic that stood out to me when you sent over your stuff and we were talking is non-traditional marketing. I want to talk about that because I know so many people are in the digital field right now, and it can work, but it's slow, but it's a game, it's a challenge, it's changing. And I always tell people, like, you can't just rely on all of the platforms and
that's right
and stuff. So what have you found as far as non-traditional marketing has worked for you?
It's kind of funny that now we consider a lot of what I would consider non-traditional marketing used to be traditional marketing.
Right.
And I view marketing in kind of two separate but equal lanes. The critical component of both of those lanes is that they both must maintain your brand voice, your brand messaging, and deliver on your brand promise. And so I think what you may often see in kind of an open marketplace, whether it's restaurant or retail or really automotive services or anything you're looking for, is that let's pretend you're shopping for tires and you go online and you say, "I need this tire. I don't really know a whole hell of a lot about tires, but I'm going to search through whatever website it may be." And then you start getting served ads. That's where digital marketing kicks into place. And then you see all of a sudden you found this tire shop in your town, might be a national chain or a local, and it not only says we have great prices on tires, but we'll get you in and out in an hour and a half. And it makes a brand promise, right? If that's a hallmark of your brand, quick service, friendly service, hour and a half. And so this is also where digital marketing comes into play, because then you start thinking, I don't want to spend 4 or 5 hours in this shop all day. Hour and a half sounds great to me. I can get back to work. Maybe I can extend my lunch break. So then you go to the shop and you arrive at the shop, and yeah, the tires were a good price, but it wasn't an hour and a half. It was more like 3 hours. So you're thinking to yourself, you know what? I kind of got gypped on that brand promise. So that's kind of a gross example of a brand promise that doesn't deliver as a result of digital marketing, because it doesn't match what you've told the customer to expect. And so I think In our world, which is the restaurant industry, and you can lump retail into that anytime you're doing anything dealing with the general public where they're walking in, not necessarily making reservations, but making a point of purchase decision. I think digital marketing must deliver on that brand promise or must make that brand promise and set up brand expectations. And then that's where, non-traditional marketing, which used to be traditional marketing, really has to come into play. And those things have to synergize correctly in order to actually deliver on the brand promise, which is where your operations come in.
Yes.
And so let's rewind that scenario a little bit. You make that promise, you get that digital promise online, and then when you walk into the shop, the first thing that the service attendant says to you, "Ma'am, I guarantee you we're going to get you out in an hour and a half. Not a problem. Have a seat. There's cold water over there. There's coffee, whatever you'd like." And sure enough, at an hour and 28 minutes, he calls you up to the podium, and you pay and you get out. You may not think of that brief guest interaction as a marketing moment, but it absolutely is, because that brief guest interaction, the customer interaction, is actually a non-traditional approach in making that promise to that customer that has been, or delivering on that promise to that customer that has been promised digitally. And so that's one example. And then you also have non-traditional marketing in the sense of, what are you doing to build excitement surrounding your brand? And so the digital space is crowded. It's a lot of noise. Everyone is talking about the exact same things. And it's really, you're leaving it up to a customer to make a decision based upon some differentiating factors. And so non-traditional marketing, this is where non-traditional marketing really, really plays in our restaurants and reaching out to our potential customers, our guests that want to come in and visit us. We're visiting apartment complexes. We're visiting banks. We're seeing people in public. We're attending different community gatherings. We're creating this guest experience before it even happens in the restaurant, in which we're depending upon our operations to deliver. And so non-traditional marketing can be something as simple as that. We also do a music tour every year. And the music tour for us is totally non-traditional marketing. We use it to raise money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. It's something that we do at all of our locations, and that is completely non-traditional marketing. We don't advertise in that music tour, "Come eat seafood." We advertise in that music tour, "Come hear some Nashville artists and help us support a great cause." That's a great example of non-traditional marketing, so that when that customer comes there, they come to your restaurant or come to your venue and they have a great time, they're going to associate that great time with a feeling that they get, which is the most important thing that can happen. Going back to that tire shop example, you felt assured when that service person said to you, "Not, ma'am, we're going to have you out in an hour and a half, no problem." That's a feeling. And so you're attaching a feeling to an experience, and that's how you deliver on that brand promise.
That is powerful. And I mean, a lot of times when people think of marketing, they're probably not going to think of all the things you just said. And I know one time I've spoken to somebody who is a franchise in the fitness field, and they're very, very luxury, right? And they said, when they're coming in, they provide water, they provide like different things in between, and having that experience so that they don't need to worry if they forgot their water, if they need a protein shake, if they need this, like it's included in their membership fee, so to speak, so that they can get all these things that they need. And they're getting that experience right when they walk in, like, "Hey, here, hope you're doing good. Here's some water. Here's this," those types of things to get it going. They don't advertise necessarily, "Oh, you're going to get all this stuff," because they don't, they think that once you're in there, you care more about your health. And that's part of like their brand and their mission and their goals.
Well, that's a curated experience. I mean, that's a perfect example of where digital marketing may be attractive to whatever neighborhoods they're reaching if it's a higher end fitness space. But then once the person walks in the door, the curated experience that they receive actually delivers on the brand promise that they've made. And I think that's critical.
Absolutely. There's been so many times when I don't have any off the top of my head, but there's been so many experiences that I know I've witnessed where somebody said, "Oh, we're going to do this XYZ," and then under delivered. When somebody under delivers, we don't know what they're going through, but at the same time, I also like to make sure that I communicate and be like, "Hey, well, I expect it," depending on what it is. If they're doing tires and rotating stuff, like it's probably not as important to me, but I like to communicate, "Hey, I expected this because of XYZ, but I'm not going to like go and bash them on Facebook and Google and LinkedIn and all these other things because the experience wasn't good." Right. So it's kind of like, "Hey, I think you can do better with this in the future, but I won't be coming back and I'm not going to write you a nasty review," because so many times people go right to the reviews. Right. And that can harm a small business. no matter what. And I think that sometimes in this world right now, like you said, the social is so busy, but it's like everybody just wants to be heard and be mad and share their experiences. And I'm like, let's share more positives. And if they're negative, like just talk to them. And if they don't care, then, but I've seen firsthand so many people just start bashing on reviews.
Well, I think that's the perfect example of a situation in which you have, net promoter score. Everybody knows net promoter score. So you have your low numbers or people that will actively not promote what you are doing, whatever business it may be. Your high numbers, let's say 8, 9, 10, are actively telling others about the experience that they had and encouraging others in trying to have that same experience. I would argue that the most dangerous customer is the customer that falls somewhere in between. I think your icing on the cake obviously is your 8s, your 9s, and your 10s. They're going to be marketers for you. And then your bottom of the barrel, the people that go online and bash you in reviews or even reach out directly to management and say, I had an awful experience here. Sometimes, sure, they just want to be heard. They've made up their mind. They're not coming back, but that actually gives you an opportunity to correct the situation. Mm-hmm. The most dangerous customer falls somewhere in between, in the 4, 5, and 6, in which they've decided to not return and they're not telling you why. And so you don't get an opportunity to rescue that relationship because you've made a brand promise. You didn't deliver on that brand promise. Are they super pissed off? Are they going to be negative net on those things? Right. No, they're not. But they're also not letting you know why they didn't come back. They're not going to fill out a survey. They're not going to respond to any more digital recruitment that you may do towards them. They're just simply not going to return. And so that's why it's really, really critical that when you're making a brand promise that you can deliver on it through your operations.
Yes, I love it. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, I have something that I'm building in the pipeline for some of those things. So it's exciting for me to hear that because I'm like, yes.
Right.
Hey there, I want to interrupt this episode with a quick message. If you're listening to this podcast episode and want to learn about branding your franchise or small business, then go to brandingbridge.com. That's branding-bridge.com. So there's 2 other kind of points that we can build upon. And that's one of them I want to talk about is knowing your customer, because this, without a doubt, I hear it day in and day out. Oh, we're not reaching the right audience. Oh, our customers aren't converting. Why? Right. And so I think this is like one of those topics that everybody needs to know. So tell me a little bit more about that.
I've been really passionate about this for a long time, and it's only been bolstered as the business has grown and we've opened more locations in which, especially when you're running a small business and in a franchise location, regardless of whether it's Shuckin Shack or everyone thinks of McDonald's or, Midas tires or Midas brakes and all of those things, it's still a small business. And I think there's a huge difference between knowing your target audience and knowing your actual customer. There is a clear differentiated difference between those two things. Knowing your target audience uses metrics. Okay. We're talking about your standard 1, 3, 5 mile concentric rings. We're talking about your 5, 10, 15, 20-minute drives. What do the neighborhoods look like? What is the profile of that neighborhood? What is their expendable income? What's their annual restaurant spend? All of those things. That's knowing your target audience. And then you can customize your digital ads. You can customize everything you're doing to speak to that target audience. The point of differentiation, much like on the marketing side, comes when they walk in your door. You have to get to know your customer. And I think it's absolute baloney that people can't know their customers. That's absolutely ridiculous. Because when you make that customer connection, when they walk in the door, going back to the net promoter score, you turn that 5, 6, or 7 into an 8, 9, or 10 simply by making a very, very easy connection with everyone who walks into the door. Now, you're going to get some customers that come in, they want the good, they want the service, whatever it may be. They're going to walk out and they're going to come in once a week or once every 10 days or once every 2 weeks. And they're just not going to be open. They're not going to be talkative, and that is fine. But give it a shot. It's worth the shot. And I think that's critically important to get to know people's names. It's much like sales. I've been in sales, and it's really, really important. You always look for an in sales. If they're a family person, if they like a certain watch brand, if they're wearing certain shoes, if they're doing certain things, you've got to make a genuine customer connection so that you can actually create that loop with them. You can create that synergy with them. And so they actually feel welcomed. And that's important. This is the second time I've talked about feelings, and that's important. It's critical. The restaurant experience as a whole everyone, this is where restaurants are different. This is where restaurants are different than retail. This is where restaurants are different than automotive shops, like we've talked about. People keep food at home and they also have appliances. Okay. They can cook food at home. They are more than capable of doing it. They cannot change their own tires at home.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot manufacture their own clothing at home, but they can cook food at home. The difference is when they come to a full service restaurant like Shuckin Shack, what they are searching for is an experience. And it is up to you to deliver on that experience. And I believe that part of that experience is creating a genuine customer connection with everyone that walks in.
It's so funny that you talk about feelings. I think, and this is my completely biased opinion, nobody addresses feelings as much as they used to or care to in this day and age. And I mean, maybe it's the digital, maybe it's all this other stuff, right? But I was doing some type of customer research for one of my other projects that I'm working on. And it dawned on me, like, my dad goes to the same bank for his whole life because they know his name, they know his family. They're always like, hey, how's how's Susie doing? How's Antonio? What do you need? Etc. And my dad's a trustworthy person. So he's like, oh, I'm going to stick with this person. They know everything about me, etc. And he can trust these people, right? And that brings into the feelings of trust and insecure and happiness. And I laugh because they like know him, and he'll just go in there sometimes and just talk. And yeah, he's older and stuff, and their generation is slightly different. But I think that's what's missing more in today's society. And, you know, when you get those feelings from people, you're like, oh, that's what it feels like. You know what I mean? So it's like,
absolutely,
you need to give those feelings to your customers. And I know you're in the restaurants, but like, I feel like any type of B2C can lack.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, I'm into cars on the side. It's a hobby of mine. And the things that I can't do personally in working on my cars and things like that, I have 2 mechanic shops or 3 in town that I take it to.
Yeah.
They're perfectly capable. And I live in a city large enough that we have many, many mechanic shops, but I take it to these 3 people because they're going to shoot me straight.
Yeah.
They're going to give me the right feelings. I trust what they're telling me and I can verify what they've done. And that's important. I have innumerable choices, but I choose these 3 shops because I know that they're going to do an honest job and I can go in and talk to them and they're going to listen to what I'm saying and not just, try to diagnose something that doesn't need to be diagnosed. And that's critical.
Yeah. And I think to that point, I mean, when you sometimes like, I've always been cautious of car places. For example, sure. I'm a woman, right? I come in, I'm like, sure. Hey, I need this done. And I'm like, oh, they're going to charge me. They're going to tell me there's a million things wrong, right? Like there's all these problems and stereotypes. And I've gotten to the point where I trust the dealership to go and do the stuff. They know me, et cetera. And it's in and out real easy. But it's just like stuff like that. We don't really look at it as building that brand and non-traditional marketing and stuff like that.
That's right. Yeah. I think, your average consumer wants a product, good or service. And they may not necessarily even know that they want those feelings, but once you give them a taste of that, that's how you create a long-term customer relationship.
Right. Absolutely. And then all the other bonus stuff like, hey, they give me coupons.
Right.
The coupons only work if the customer experience works. Right. I mean,
that's right.
I'm not going to go back to somebody if they did bad service. So
that's right.
So then the last one is authenticity. Tell me, I'm very authentic and I love when people are authentic. So tell me how you've created that in your brand or what that looks like for you.
I think the critical component of authenticity is listening.
Yeah.
I think that's the most critical component. And that authenticity cascades not only from my level and my teammates here, my colleagues here, but down to our franchisees, down to their employees, down to their customers, and so on and so forth. And what we're trying to create just conceptually as a brand is we want an authentic coastal experience. And so for us, we live at the coast. We know what that looks like. I live an authentic coastal experience every day because I live here and I have for a number of years. And so when we're talking about we have seasonal locations, right? And people from Ohio and Pennsylvania and Kentucky and Tennessee who may only get to come to the coast once a year.
Yeah.
They come and visit us, they get that authentic coastal experience. And then what we do is when we open in those states and we open new locations nearby, we want them to walk into our doors and have that same feeling, that key word again, that same feeling that they got on that week-long vacation at the Carolina coast. That's what we're after. And so that's the first component of authenticity on our side. And then as it relates to listening, I think that we've done a good job, and it's something that we want to continue to improve on, regardless of how good we've been, is that we can create authentic conversations within our employee base and within our management base and within our franchisees, back to the franchisor, when we actually listen to what they're saying.
Yeah.
We're not field generals. We are not blowing horns and pointing and say, move in this direction. We're actually asking for feedback. What do we get right? What do we get wrong? We're creating a trust, kind of this circle of trust, I guess you could say, this trusting relationship in which you can be authentic with a person, because when you listen and you respond and you correct, that gives you the opportunity that when you do face what seems like an impasse, you can come to that person and say, hey, look, I just have to be very honest with you in this moment. You know that I'm an honest person, that I'm going to be authentic with you. And here's what I think. I want you to think about it. We don't have to raise our voices at one another.
Right.
We don't have to be, we don't have to be at each other's throats or be argumentative over things. But because we've established this trust in other areas of our professional relationship or our customer relationship even, then we're allowed to do those things.
Yeah, I will say confrontation and then constructive criticism are two things that have come to me when you're speaking. And I in the past was probably a lot of defensive mechanisms of
Sure.
when somebody would say, hey, here's what you're doing wrong, or here's how you can improve or whatever. They're thinking, oh, I did this wrong, da, 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 da. But now more so as an entrepreneur and leader in that industry kind of thing, it's like, I will accept anything, think about it, and see if there's an issue, see how we can fix it, see, you know what I mean? Like seeing things differently rather than just taking the blame and saying, oh, this is so-and-so's fault or whatever. It's not going to get you anywhere in the long run. And I think, people are shy of getting feedback or scared. Oh my gosh, what is he going to think? Is he going to fire me? Like those types of things too can happen. And in some of the franchisee locations, as the employees might speak about something.
Yeah, I mean, I think as leaders, we're not ever beyond reproach. We should be able to take constructive feedback.
Yep.
And sure, we all have feelings. It might hurt our feelings, but if the end goal remains the same, but we have different views on the path that we should take, then let's figure out how we can work together on reaching that goal.
Absolutely. I love it. You are full of knowledge, my friend. And I love marketing and customer experience and all of that. So this is definitely different topics that people can enjoy. So if you could give anybody, whether they are looking to franchise or be a franchisee, some feedback, what kind of feedback would you give them?
I think it's the same advice for both the franchisor and the franchisee, in that find the people that enhance your system. Find the people that are good cultural fits first and foremost. Of course, they have to meet minimum, financial requirements and administrative requirements and all those things. But the best thing that you can do in growing your franchise brand, whether you're a franchisor and you're recruiting franchisees, or whether you're a potential franchisee looking for franchisors, visit them, go see their operations. Don't make a decision based upon walking into one of their restaurants or one of their shops or one of their stores or whatever it may be. You've got to understand that the franchisor-franchisee relationship, most franchise agreements are 10 to 20 years, and the average franchisee-franchisor relationship lasts for about 7.5 years. And so when you take all those things into consideration, think about a 7.5 year marriage to that franchisor. And you have to take that into consideration. It can't just be, this is great on the bottom line, this looks great in my Excel actuarial table and my cash flow considerations and all of those things. You've got to be a good cultural fit for that franchisor. And as a franchisee, don't be afraid to walk away. If something doesn't strike you just right, ask clarifying questions.
Exactly.
And that still is not there for you, then say, hey, look, I think I could probably be a great franchisee of another system. I just don't feel like this is a great fit. And that's the exact same advice for a franchisor. Have franchisees interview potential franchisees. Of course, if they meet all the normal qualifications, it's okay to tell them, I just don't think we're a great fit together. I think you're going to be a fantastic franchisee of another system.
Absolutely. I think that's important and that matters, because you don't want to be in that thing 5-7 years from now, like you're saying, and just not be happy and try to get out of it.
That's right.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much. And if people want to learn more or chat with you, how can they find you?
Sure. So learn more about Shuckin Shack. You can go to www.theshuckinshack.com. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm on LinkedIn and very active.
Perfect. All right. Thanks so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening in on today's Brand Clarity episode with Susie Liberatore. 2 things. First and foremost, please, if you liked this episode, please subscribe and leave some positive reviews. Also, don't forget to sign up for Stop Sending Your Customers to the Competition and get my insider secrets to compelling branding that converts. You can find that at branding-bridge.com. It's a free workbook for you to check out right now, all of the branding techniques and strategies that I use for my paying clients.